Good evening and welcome to the beginning of an era. My name is Davidson Baker. I am joined by two of my esteemed colleagues as we kick off, no pun intended, a new season of the NFL and do this little thing that we like to call the Debt Row Pod. This is the Debt Row Podcast, started by an idea by the man to my right, if you're viewing on YouTube, Josh Sears. We decided to kind of run a podcast with this. I'll go ahead and let the guys introduce themselves. Josh, how are you?
I'm good, man. Excited to get things going.
Ready to talk some football this year. And also joining us, another good football mind and our friend that will be doing the editing of this pod, our friend Bradley Davis. Brad, what's going on, my man?
Nothing much. Just excited to get into it.
Without further ado, we won't waste any time. What we have on the dock today, we'll talk a little bit about, I wouldn't say shocking, I would say somewhat perplexing result in last night's game in Kansas City, as well as go over every single over under pick for all three of us, for all 32 teams in the NFL, excuse me, and every single award that we will cover that will happen at the end of the season. Obviously, we're going to hit all of our predictions. We're going to be coming at you live, not live, but coming at you twice a week, hopefully on Wednesdays and Thursdays, recording on Tuesdays and Wednesdays throughout the NFL season. And this is the inaugural episode of the Debt Row Pod. So, boys, cheers.
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 The record I am drinking some White Claws. I just put it in the mug.
Fair.
Nothing wrong with some claws.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Nothing
out
wrong
the
with some
mug.
claws.
Yeah.
Well,
Claw
let's
in the
get into
mug.
it. Last night in Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium, the 104th season of the NFL kicked off. There were some expectations, I think, across the board from a lot of people. I think everybody in America was on the Lions plus whatever. Travis Kelce hurting himself 2 days before the game. No Chris Jones because he wants to get paid and he deserves to get paid. But I think there's a couple of key points, and we've got a lot to cover with our over-unders. So we won't spend too much time on this game, but I think we all three decided, just given the result of this game, we have no choice but to talk about it. And the number one thing, Josh, I would say that comes out of Kansas City is you can't have Travis Kelce out at all in any game of importance because who are you going to throw to?
Not Kadarius Toney. We saw last night firsthand how that's gonna go. Yeah, they need to make a move quick because it's gonna get out of hand faster. They're gonna need one of their rookies to step up, one of the two, or Travis Kelsey's got to come back and be the all-world tight end he is, because we saw last night there's no one in that receiving core you can depend on regularly. When Marquez Valdez-Scantling is your best option, you got a big problem.
And there are a couple of rookies that could make their way into bigger roles. I think I liked what I saw out of Rashee Rice. I think I liked what I saw out of Justin Ross. Brad, I'll turn it over to you. There is a glaring weakness here, and Sky Moore was supposed to be the guy that came in and kind of filled that void, right?
I mean, I think going into this game, everyone was thinking that he was going to take the next step. He was going to take go into the next level of being their number one. We talked about this a little bit about how we looked at last year's roster in terms of the receiving core as like being really weak, but they had Juju. They let him walk in free agency, and they were really looking for Moore to be that next guy up. And I feel like last night and surprisingly he led the team in routes run. So he was getting all the routes, in the game, but he just was not getting the targets. I think he had 3 targets, but no catches whatsoever. So it's kind of surprising that, he wasn't seeing any action at all, especially with Tony not playing well. Pacheco, we talked about it. Pacheco isn't really like a receiving threat, but he had like 6 receptions, I feel like. Yeah, he had 4 receptions for
4
31 yards,
receptions.
which was
Yeah.
kind of which was kind of surprising. But yeah, Moore was
And
kind
a
of a
lot of those
letdown
were
last night.
design
So,
options too, not just check downs. There
yeah,
was some design throws to him, which was surprising.
yeah, yeah.
Some of my favorite stats that I saw today. So I'm not going to take credit for any stats that I didn't handpick myself, obviously, but a couple of eye-popping things that I saw. Number one, Kadarius Toney, lowest P. I don't live or die by PFF, but like I do respect and understand where their statistics and analytics come from. Kadarius Toney's PFF grade last night was the lowest given to a wide receiver since 2018. And I think it showed on
Well,
the field. You have a very untimely drop in the fourth quarter on that drive where there was nobody around him. Obviously, the ball that bobbled off his hands that ended up being taken into the end zone. And here's another thing. This isn't just something that happened last night. Since 2021, he has the highest drop rate amongst wide receivers with at least 75 targets of anyone in the NFL at 11%. I think a little nugget to throw in there too. The number 3 player on that list is Darius Slayton, and the number 4 player on that list is Sterling Shepard. So let's give Daniel Jones a little bit of slack because he was throwing to all 3 of them at one point. But nevertheless, I think Toney is clearly the guy that gets all of the brute. But Josh, I think just the lack of development that Sky Moore has shown us is very, very concerning. Something has to be done in that wide receiver room for the Chiefs.
Yeah. After Sky Moore's Super Bowl, really thought he was going to start this year really well. Had a great game in the Super Bowl. Was a big part of them winning that game. Which so was Kadarius Toney. Both made big plays, but as we can see based on the stats you just gave and his look in Week 1, a top tier wide receiver for the Chiefs is not going to be his role. I think I texted you earlier today. He needs to almost, in my opinion, be reserved to just punt returning right now until he proves
Yeah.
himself of any value other than that.
They seem like they got a punt returner they like, though, in Richie James.
Yeah.
And here's a guy, but Brad, if you notice this,
he's the guy.
a guy that should
Here's
have
the
gotten
guy.
more touches. Here's a guy.
Here's the guy.
Why are we not involving Justin Ross more?
Agreed.
Yeah, really,
Agreed.
really. He had a really good game last night, I feel like. Compared to
They only
what
threw to him
was given.
once.
Yeah. Yeah, only gave it to him once. But, like, I feel like he could have had the opportunity, especially with the way that the receivers were playing. Like, I feel like he wasn't given a lot of opportunities to flash. It was so weird because they're looking around like, well, Sky Moore isn't doing anything. Kadarius Toney's dropping passes. It's just like they didn't really give him any kind of opportunity because he was only targeted once and had the one catch, and that was it.
Yeah.
The other team that we have to talk about, obviously, is the team that won this game,
Yeah.
the Detroit Lions. And there are a lot of talking points involved there. The favorites in the division coming into this season, the favorites, for a lot of people, America's sweetheart per se, their Super Bowl odds skyrocketed overnight. And, whether you are Mike Tirico and want to put an asterisk on this game is up to you, but they went into Kansas City and won that game. But what a lot of people were talking about, and what I think will continue to be talked about as the season progresses, is the use of the running back position. Brad, I know you and I both have a vested interest in seeing Jahmyr Gibbs touch the football. David Montgomery, while he's valuable in pass protection, minus the one snap where Nick Bolton sent him to the shadow realm,
Yeah.
just not a lot of efficiency out of Montgomery, and I think that's not really too surprising, right?
I mean, he had 3.5 yards per carry. Not going to get it done for you. Compared to Gibbs, who had 6 yards per carry, with only 7 carries, mind you. It was just, I understood it because they were in a position late in the game where they wanted to chew a lot of clock, especially when they had that lead towards the end of the game. But it just seemed like they were taking a lot of snaps away from Gibbs when he was clearly showing he was the most explosive player on the field, and giving all those snaps to Gibbs, which I don't know. I think going forward, we'll start seeing Gibbs get a lot more touches. But for right now, this game, it was kind of weird seeing them just like pull away from Gibbs quite a bit and giving Montgomery more of the touches.
Yeah, and I mean, just the efficiency jumps off the page. Gibbs only 27% of the snaps, 7 carries, 2 catches, so 9 touches for a total of 60 yards and about 6.6 yards per touch. Josh, this can't go on for much longer, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think this is going to be a frustrating case all season, honestly. Um, Detroit, like last year, seems like a team that values the old school traditional power back. Look at Jamal Williams. He vultured touches all year last year, and they paid Montgomery this offseason when they chose not to pay Williams. So I think he's definitely going to have a clear cut role for the foreseeable future. I could see this being similar, maybe not in production, but split wise to that Saints backfield in Alvin Kamara's rookie year with Mark Ingram and Kamara.
They
Obviously,
made their own bed, though, is essentially what you're saying.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah.
I do think,
And the guy
I
he's
do
going to
think
play.
with that, I do think with that though, they are going to have to implement Gibbs more than they did last night to have that kind of duo in the backfield. Which I
Yeah.
think they could do it. It's just a matter of, are you going to give Gibbs? I mean, are you going to give Montgomery 20 to 25 touches a game?
Yeah.
But not
I
split
think
it with you.
I think in a sloppy week 1 game, you kind of just grind it out and go with your big power back. I think as the season progresses, we may even see a lot of more 2-back sets, kind of using both backs.
They kind of
Maybe
did
a
that a
little more
little bit.
Gibbs in a passing role. They did it a little bit, but I
Yeah.
expect to see more of it. Ben Johnson's a creative play caller, and I look for him to continue to expand the role of both backs.
He needs to be better.
He does. He
Was
does.
average at
It was
best
lackluster
last
last
night.
night, but he was so good
They
last
get,
year, and I think that's again sloppy first game of the season. Always is.
yeah, I mean, it's week 1. You're going up against Andy Reid in this, Chiefs offense that we thought was going to be explosive, but I'm sure he had the game 1 jitters. He doesn't want to get out coached by, Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy's the OC in
Yikes!
Kansas City. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Not worried about
Matt
getting out
Nagy can't
coached
catch the
there.
football for
Actually,
them.
thinking about that, yeah, I don't understand why you just didn't unleash on that defense. But
Matt Nagy can't catch the football for them, That's
yeah,
a big
I
thing.
don't know. He probably would have done a better job than Kadarius Toney did last night.
Maybe. I don't know if he's creating any separation. All right. We ready to get into some win totals?
Yeah, let's get it.
Let's do it. We start in the AFC East, where the favorites are the team that is on the top of the mountain for the last few years, the Bills of Buffalo. Looks like we are all in agreement here. The win total is at 10.5. I think the recurring theme, we're going to be talking about this with this division and the NFC East. Brutal schedules. You got to play everyone in this division twice. You got to play the NFC East, which I think we all can agree on are not 4 easy games either. Brad, I'll lead it off with you, and we won't spend too much time talking about teams that we all agree on. We'll get into a little bit more wherever we have sides that we all disparage on. But, that being said, why should this be the slam dunk that we all think that it is?
beat Josh Allen. I mean, that's it. When you have Josh Allen as your quarterback, you expect at least 10 wins. I have them at 11 wins, so just right over the over and under. But I mean, you have Diggs. I think James Cook is going to be really nice this year. They got tight end from on the draft. Who was it?
Dalton Kincaid.
Dalton Kincaid.
Yes. I think he's going to be a stud. Hopefully, Von Miller comes back for him, healthy and ready to go. The defense was a bit of a question mark for me coming into this year, but I think they'll be just good enough to get them over that 11, over the 10.5. And but I think overall it's Josh Allen for me. That is the reason why they're going to get to the 10.5.
Josh, reasons why you had 11, right?
I had
Did
12.
you have 11?
12.
You had 12. So
Yeah,
we all have them. I had them at 11. Brad and I have them barely eclipsing it. You have them a little more comfortably covering it. What Maybe if we take Josh Allen getting hurt off the table as reasons why this would not hit, what would it be?
Ooh, the defense taking a big downturn for whatever reason, defensive injuries, things like that. Where, I mean, Josh Allen's already got to be Superman for that team to win games. If they have to put up any more points than they already have to, you're going to have a big problem because he's already, as you've seen, come playoff time, has to stretch himself pretty thin. I mean, he is that offense. He is what makes it go. That or a loss to Stephon Diggs. That might be even bigger than the defense, actually.
Yeah.
Stephon Diggs goes down. Gabe Davis doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence in me as a wide receiver one.
But let's just say Stephon Diggs does go down. They're already in a better boat wide receiver wise just by having Gabe. Like, you know how much Patrick Mahomes wished he
Would
had
love
Gabe
to have.
Davis?
Oh yeah, no, agreed. But now obviously Josh Allen is much
Yeah.
better than he was before he got Stephon Diggs. But
Sure.
we've seen what that team looked like before. Obviously, it's going to be better because Josh Allen is better. But they're not getting to this win total without Stephon Diggs there, in my opinion.
I mean, I don't know. They did go to the playoffs. What, his second year in the league?
Without
For
Diggs.
sure, yeah.
They did.
I don't know if they
They
won
did.
10 games. They might have went 9-7.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean they were.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
think they got to 10 wins. Definitely didn't get to 11 wins. And that
2019
defense was
Bills.
probably better than this one, if memory serves correctly.
The 2019 Bills did get to 10 wins. They were 10-6.
They did. Okay, 10 wins.
Didn't they lose to the Texans in the wild card?
After being up 17 or either 14-0 or
that's right.
17-0. Yeah.
That was great playoffs.
Those were electric playoffs. Speaking of, we touched on the Detroit Lions. Speaking of teams with a whole lot of hype, the JTS Jets.
Give me a break.
It's interesting you say that, Josh, because you and I both have them barely eclipsing this over. This will be the first, even though it's just the second team we touch on, the first team that we are not all in alignment on. I think it's a lot easier to point out how this team does not eclipse 9.5 than it would be the Bills not to eclipse 10.5. Even though you could argue on paper the Jets might even have a little more talent. I think you could make that argument.
Positions probably, yeah.
And on defense, I think. However, that being said, once again, we lean back into the fact that there are no gimmies on this schedule. You look at the Jets' first 6 games: Bills, Cowboys, Patriots, Chiefs, Broncos, Eagles. I don't think it's crazy to say Jets fans, with it getting a little lighter on the back end, would take 3-3 coming out of those 6 games. Anything less than that, though, could lean into where Brad has the under here. What do you see, Brad, in terms of why you do not have them eclipsing the total of 9.5?
Don't get me wrong. I think they're going to be pretty solid, but I think they're just still too young. I think experience really does come in. I know they did add Rodgers. They added Dalvin Cook, but I know there's a lot of hype around them, which is nice, especially on Hard Knocks, because all they ever did was hype up Aaron Rodgers on a goddamn show. But they really did.
I know you loved that.
Yeah. But I think Rodgers last year showed a lot of trajectory downward in his career. I don't think he's going to be awful, and especially with having Garrett Wilson. And I don't know who the other receivers are on that team, actually. So might just be Garrett Wilson.
No Corey Davis.
Yeah. I think that was a huge blow. They would have loved to have known that was going to happen in the offseason.
Like that definitely has not been talked about enough either as a problem.
You got Alan Lazard and Randall Cobb. It's a Green Bay. It's a Green Bay reunion.
But that's the
old
man
the Randall.
It just feels like Rodgers went there because he knew he could do what he wanted to do. Bring his people, bring whoever he wanted to. I don't think Rodgers, like I said, I don't think he's gonna have a bad year, but I don't think he elevates the team the way that people think he's gonna elevate the team, especially with last year, the way that he played. I mean, yeah, you could sit here and say he didn't have any weapons or anything like that. I mean, that was also on him too. I mean, he didn't really spend a lot of time with Christian Watson and all those young receivers in Green Bay last year. It seems like he's doing that with Garrett Wilson this year, but the way that he played last year, I don't have extreme, upside. I don't see the upside that like a lot of other people do.
And then, a lot of skill position talent on, I mean, really everywhere. If Mekhi Becton can be even a shred of what people thought he was going to be, you're going to have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL as well.
Yeah.
I have them barely eclipsing it at 10, sneaking in as a wild card. Let's get funky. The Miami Dolphins, a team that I think is ceremoniously heralded by a lot of people as a sneaky pick to go deep in January. Clearly, this podcast is not of that mindset. While I love the talent that this team has, boy, there are a lot of question marks on defense. There are a lot of question marks on the offensive line. And already, literally right out of the gate, Teron Armstead not playing in week 1. And I saw today Tua's QBR is a smooth 50 points lower when Teron Armstead is not on that line as opposed to when he is, given the sample size of games played. The thing that freaks me out here is injuries, big time, and particularly with Tua. Tua has not gotten through a full season healthy since he had the damn near Bo Jackson experience against Mississippi State in 2019. Injuries are the big thing for me here. Not everybody in this division can be good, no matter how talented it is. And I'm willing to say that team that won't be the one that takes that step forward is Miami. Josh, your reasons.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple. Healthy or not, I just don't believe in Tua. Flat out. Yeah, he had a great start to last season. I think a lot of that is attributed to Mike McDaniel's scheme. And as we saw towards the latter half of that season, teams started to catch up to that. I mean, obviously not having Tua for a portion played into that. But even once Tua came back, and I mean, he wasn't the same quite, but the offense didn't look the same. Also, they're a Tyreek Hill injury away of becoming a one-dimensional pass offense and having to funnel everything through Jalen Waddle, in my opinion, too. Um, Offensive line, again, if Teron Armstead's not there, not a great unit. Which I think is we're actually going to see a trend across the league as we go through this. Offensive line may be one of the worst position groups across the whole league because I think a lot of teams are lacking there. But yeah, Tua doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in me, and neither does what Mike White. So if he goes down, it's obviously not getting any better as most backup quarterback situations, but it's just not a team I believe in, especially in a tough division with a tough schedule.
Brad, your thoughts. We all are under 9.5 on the Dolphins.
Right at 9 with them. I like the upside, especially if Tua can stay healthy. I think that's the biggest thing for all of us is if he can stay healthy. Last year when he missed like 4 games, I think, and those were crucial games. Down the stretch of the season. And especially if he gets hurt, like you said, Mike White, you're going to trust Mike White to pull you some games. That's not going to happen. The defense does have some players. They did bring in Jalen Ramsey, but I know he's hurt right now. I don't think he's playing this week. Pretty sure he's not. I'm pretty sure he's out for a good bit.
He might miss the season. I think it's an ACL, right?
Yeah, I think he is missing the season.
He's going to be lucky to make playoff time.
Yes, I mean, that's a huge blow to their defense, especially in that kind of division, where you have a lot of wide receivers that are going to be competing for the top 10, stat wise. But yeah, overall for me, it is Tua, I think, and especially the run game too, because I mean, if they were able to land JT, I would have felt more comfortable with the over, but they weren't able to do it before the season started. And as of right now, I just don't feel comfortable with their run game either. I mean, you're going to be trusting Raheem Mostert. to take a lot of your carries, which I'm not too confident in that whatsoever. I think he's a good RB2, but RB1, don't feel comfortable with it.
I wouldn't either. I do think the backfield is pretty deep. I love the Devon A-Chain acquisition in the draft. I just think in a sport where not enough things can go wrong for you to succeed, especially to head to the playoffs, I just think there are so many things that can go wrong. And some of them already have. No Armstead, no Ramsey week 1, and no Ramsey for the whole season. I think it's only a matter of time until that list begins to appreciate. One of the more interesting teams in the NFL for me this season are the New England Patriots. You have now Bill Belichick going off of breakup mode. People talking about how him and his girl have broken up. We're gonna have a
Have not heard
off
this one.
Bill.
That's a deep dive right there.
Yeah, oh yeah. We got the scoop. We saw it on Twitter.
Yeah,
That's or X or whatever
okay.
the fuck you want to call it.
Baby.
We have a pissed off Bill Belichick in the building. Man, and they're gonna get their litmus test immediately in week 1 when they play the defending NFC champion Philadelphia Eagles. I love the upside of this team. I do think that they will do what they always do. They will be solid on special teams. They will not let you fight for extra yardage. And my favorite acquisition of the offseason, I've said this to both of you in nauseum, free agent players, draft, coaching acquisitions, Bill O'Brien to become the offensive coordinator was the single best move made this offseason. I don't think we see the Mac Jones that we saw last year. I think we see the Mac Jones of a little closer, if not even better than what he was his rookie season. Brad, you're not buying what I'm selling. Tell me why.
No, I'm not. I'm not a big believer in Mac Jones, so I'm down on that side. I don't like their receiving room. I don't like it at all. I know they brought in Juju, but does he really bolster that offense up to where it was last year? I'm not.
They're saying he already has knee
sure.
problems too.
Yeah, so I mean, he's coming into the season already injured. The defense is always going to be great, especially with a coach like Belichick. He's always going to have the defense playing pretty nice. But could see something where towards the end of the year, I'm not going to say Belichick's going to get fired. They're not going to do that at all. But come next offseason,
ways.
I definitely could see it, and I could see Bill O'Brien coming in being the head coach next season. I could definitely see it, especially if the offense plays the way that you think they're going to play Davison. I could see that happening. I mean, I think Belichick's getting up there in age. Last year wasn't that great for him. If they have another down year, I could see them go, "Hey, we like O'Brien. We're going to go with him. We're not going to fire you, but I'm just going to kindly ask you to walk away."
Interesting take.
Let's talk about let's expand on that a little bit though, and I'll switch it to you, Josh. I have heard. There's some very credible guys that since the Patriots were so good for so long, have established writers that have been on the beat for a very long time. Tom Curran being one of them, Mike Weiss being another one. They have brought up the Belichick potentially on the, and if you can see me on YouTube, I'm doing the air quotations, hot seat. Can Bill Belichick be on the hot seat?
Yes and no. Not to the point where he's ever going to be fired. You're not firing Bill Belichick. But
so you just elevate him to the position he's already in as general manager, which has not been great, by the way.
No, here's where you throw that beautiful tag of mutually agreeing to part ways.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, everybody's favorite term when they don't want to fire somebody. Yeah. Hate that term.
He retires.
Yeah, he retired. Now, I don't think he's done coaching if he leaves New England. Actually, I thought about this the other day. Could see him taking over in Cleveland if they have a poor season. But that is another sidebar that we don't have time for right now.
I love that.
Yep. Yeah. Kevin Stefanski out, Bill Belichick in. But
I love football.
like you
I
said
love football
earlier,
season.
I don't see this being an issue because obviously I'm on the over for their win total. I think they're going to have a better season than last year. Offense is going to be competent. It's not going to be being called by a defensive coordinator or a special teams coordinator and two failed head
Jesus.
coaches. So,
Jesus.
yeah, I mean, I get that they don't have a lot of weapons, but they've made it work for years with not a lot of weapons. I get that was with Tom Brady, but I also don't think Mac Jones is a slouch that can't do anything. He did go head to head with Brady, still playing damn good football in Tampa, and put him on the brink of losing as when he was a rookie. So,
Whew. Man, if Brady would have lost that game, heads would have rolled.
what would we be talking about right now?
Heads would have rolled.
Mac Jones would be a god.
On to the AFC North. But quick, before we do, we all have the Bills winning that division.
Yes.
All right, now let's get weird. Those watching on YouTube are probably thinking right off the bat, looking at this graphic,
We're
what the
all
hell?
insane.
I will double down, and I think Josh will also double down with me. Let me get this off first. I don't by any means think the Bengals are going to be bad. I don't by any means think the Bengals are going to be a pushover. Their win total is one of the highest in the NFL at 11.5. And I think they missed that mark by 2, just 10 wins. But how my predictions played out, I had 4 teams for 3 wild card spots, all at 10-7. And given the tie-breaking procedures, the Bengals were the team that missed out. I have the Bengals missing the playoffs. Josh, I believe you are the same, correct?
Yes, I have them missing the playoffs. I have them at 9-8, not 10 wins. But honestly, all 8 of those losses I feel are pretty understandable against very, very good teams. It's a tough schedule they have. I mean, I have 2 losses to open the season. We'll get to more of that later. But I think every team I have them losing to ends the season with a winning record, and I think I have all of them in the playoffs. So they're not losing any games that should be a surprise per se. I have again, like you said, nothing bad per se about Cincinnati. It's just time for them to have a down year. I think.
Agreed.
You're not going to win 10 games every year.
No, you're not. Not in this climate.
No, not that division.
Brad, does Burrow's calf concern you like it does me?
That's not the reason why I have them under. I just think the division is super competitive. Super competitive. I mean, I have, we'll get into it later, but, I have the Ravens, with a pretty nice record. And I think when you look at that division, it's going to be tough to go above 11.5 wins. So I have them at 10-7, which that I had them at like the 5th seed, I think, in playoff picture, which would be really nice. But I don't know. When I look at the AFC, I look at the North, it's tough. It's not going to be easy to come out there with, 13, 14, 15 wins. 10 wins seems pretty comfortable for them.
I know
I
you
think so,
said
too.
the calf does not concern you, Brad. It concerns
No,
the
it
hell
does
out of
not.
me.
Concerns the
I
shit out
don't.
of me.
Soft tissue
It would.
injuries, rough, and he hasn't really been the healthiest quarterback to start his
Yeah.
career either. That's
He
the thing.
hasn't, but also he's recovered pretty well. I mean, I thought he
Yes.
wasn't going to play this week. I thought that they were going to rest him this week and then get him, ready for week 2. But especially going up against who they play this week. They play
Cleveland.
Only a team that's
Yeah.
beaten them
Only a
5
team
of
that
the
they
last
can't
6
beat.
times.
Yeah, exactly.
They can't
Going
beat
against
him.
Going against Myles Garrett, dude, I would sit him, but he seems like he's ready to go, so it doesn't really
Especially
concern
because
me.
he
It won't
doesn't
concern
historically
me.
play well week 1 anyways.
Yeah.
He hasn't been great in week 1 games.
It won't concern me till it really concerns me.
Yeah, fair.
I think the Browns should very much so concern them. We'll get to that in a few minutes. The darling of the AFC North for my 2 comrades are the Baltimore Ravens. I love a lot of what they did in the offseason. I think you could obviously say this is the most stacked wide receiver room that Lamar has ever had. You know what, though? You know what I'm tired of hearing, though? Like, Todd Monken. Dude, give me a break with Todd Monken. Like, Todd Monken could make the offense worse. We don't know. We have absolutely no idea. Todd Monken was an NFL castaway. He was at Oklahoma State and a couple other places that, without looking it up, I can't think of off the top of my head. But I mean, this dude was ran out of the league, and we're just going to magically think that, oh my God, they got Todd Monken. The offense is going to be better.
The Georgia effect.
I'm balking. Yes, Georgia. That's right. I'm balking at that. I'm not saying I doubt Todd Monken. I do think that they'll air it out a little bit more, and I think that it'll look a little more aesthetically pleasing than it did under Greg Roman. But cut the shit about, oh, Todd Monken's here, so he's going to save the day. And that's what everyone is saying, and I'm not buying into that. I do think they will be good. I do think they will make the playoffs. They're one of my 4 teams in the AFC that I have being 10-7. This is a big year for a lot of guys on this team. Odell, if he can do Odell things, I think that's going to win them a lot of games. Brad, what say you?
Zay Flowers. I love me some Zay Flowers. I think the kid's going to be a stud. I mean, especially last year too, with them competing in that division. I mean, they could have won the division without Lamar. So think what would have happened last year if they had Lamar healthy. Those last, he missed like the last 4 games, I think, including the playoffs. They were pushing for that division, towards the end of the season. With the addition of Odell, I love it. I don't think Odell has to be the guy. I think they have a lot of players around him, especially Andrews. Andrews is a stud. And I love their defense. They were the 3rd ranked defense last year. I think, they come back healthier, stronger, and I'm really high on the Ravens. I think the Ravens are going to be really nice. And they're going to be competing in the AFC pretty heavily.
Josh, when we get to season awards a little later, you guys will also be in unison on a facet of these Ravens. What goes wrong, other than the division being tough? What goes wrong for the Ravens this year, if anything?
The only thing that can derail this team, in my opinion, and it's the same thing that always does, a Lamar Jackson injury. This team's a Lamar Jackson injury away from being a 500 football team again. With Lamar as the starting quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens, he's 49-21. And I hate throwing that out there because, as you know, I am a absolute hater of quarterback wins. But when Lamar Jackson's on the field, the Baltimore Ravens don't lose. So if he's out there with this supporting cast around him, they're not going to lose many football games. I think Lamar Jackson is one of not just the best quarterbacks in the NFL, one of the best players in the entire league. He is the most talented player, arguably, in the entire league. He's on the field, you're going to win football games. It's just that simple. So if he's not there, Tyler Huntley, yeah, he's fine. Worst Pro Bowler of all time.
Yeah, I think you're giving him quite a bit of credit.
Yeah. I mean, last year when Lamar went out, before Lamar went out, they were averaging like 27 points a game. Huntley came in, they were averaging 12 points a game. So it's a huge difference. But I think Lamar stays healthy.
Yeah, Huntley's capable of keeping you in ball games, but he's obviously not Lamar.
Now let's get sexy. The Cleveland Browns. This is my AFC North champion. I believe that we are about to see the Deshaun Watson show. You give a guy $230 million guaranteed, and this is a prove-it year to believe whether or not he deserves it. Here's what cannot be denied. They got dudes everywhere, and they have arguably one of the best wide receiver rooms in the NFL. You have Amari Cooper, you have Donovan Peoples-Jones, and you have Elijah Moore. There are not. I mean, again, I hate to keep harping back on Kansas City. Mahomes would kill to have one of those guys. One. And the Browns,
Cooper, dude.
Give him Elijah Moore and they win last night.
give him Peoples Jones. It doesn't matter. Give him any of those three guys. Give him any of those three guys.
Give him David Njoku.
Exactly. And you have a two-headed monster at tight end. You have one of the best, if not the hardest running back in the NFL. You have a top 3 pass rusher in the league in Myles Garrett. I mean, Kevin Stefanski has already proved he can take this team to the playoffs in a very deep division. Why can't they do it again?
Mayfield.
With Baker Mayfield. Why can't they do it again? Why can't they do it again? Brad, you have the under. Tell me why they can't do it again.
I don't. It's just every year. I feel like every year we sit here and we go, Browns could be nice. The Browns could be nice, and they just always disappoint. I think it comes down to the coaching. I don't really believe in the coach. Stefanski, that's who it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I like Deshaun Watson, but at the same time, he has missed a lot of football in the games that he played last year that looked too great. Which I'm not going to put that against him because he did miss about almost 2 years of playing professional football. So I'm not going to put that against him. But he's going to have to come back and be what he used to be in Houston in order for them to be contending for the North. But I don't know. The schedule's hard. The division's tough. I like a lot of their players. Nick Chubb's like one of my favorite running backs in the league. I think that he's going to be a stud. And also losing Hunt. I think Kareem Hunt, losing Hunt as that receiving back, Nick Chubb's going to step up and really, contribute in that area, which he really hasn't before. But I don't know. I feel like every year we sit here and we talk about the Browns could do it, and they completely disappoint.
Yeah. I can kind of agree with you there. They do always kind of seem to disappoint, except for the one year they finally made that magical run and beat the Steelers.
Yeah. Beat the Sonic rings out of the Steelers.
Yeah.
One of my favorite playoff victories of all time by any
that was
means.
fantastic.
But as you know, at that time, I was loving me some Browns football. But now I've done a complete 180. I'm on the over here. Don't love it because I'm going to be rooting for this team to lose as much as possible because Deshaun Watson does not deserve nice things. And I hope he turns into a laughingstock of the league. But now the team's too talented. I don't think they're going to lose that much. Even with a tough schedule, tough division, hand the ball to Nick Chubb. Deshaun probably is going to be good. Like, he's too talented not to be, especially with that supporting cast. And that defense might be the best defense in the league.
The defense is going to be so good
everywhere.
The defense is going to be really good.
Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett. Enough said there. Like,
I have them starting 4-0.
I think I'm pretty close right there with you.
I have them starting 4-0, including starting off 3-0 in the division, wins over all 3 teams in the division in their first 4 weeks, and the Tennessee Titans.
I've got them 3-1. I've got them dropping to Pittsburgh.
Speaking of Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Segue.
8.5. I don't hate a lot of the things that Pittsburgh has done in the offseason and in the draft. Obviously, this is one of the seminal franchises in the NFL. It makes me cringe putting on the record that I'm taking Mike Tomlin to have his first losing season when he has never done that. But I'm doing it. I'm saying 8-9. They get a little bit of a gift. If they can win one of their first 2 games against the Niners or the Browns, there's a very strong likelihood that they are 3-1 heading into their first meeting with Baltimore, because week 3 they play the Raiders and week 4 they play the Texans. I cannot get over the fact that I would have their win total for me a lot lower if any human being on this planet not named Mike Tomlin was the coach. Kenny Pickett is the key, obviously. And Josh, I think you love some Kenny Pickett.
I love me some Kenny Pickett. I think he is an absolute dog and is ready. Like, I'm not one that typically buys into preseason. but I'm going to buy into preseason right here. He was quite literally flawless. Like, I think he had a perfect passer rating in the preseason. 158.3, I believe.
He was rated the best quarterback in the preseason.
Yeah, and I mean, again, it's preseason, whatever. I don't want to buy too much into it, but he looked like he was in complete control and command of the offense. But outside of Kenny Pickett, I think there's a factor we're forgetting here. TJ Watt's back. And
Yeah.
when TJ Watt's on the field, the Steelers don't really lose that many football games. Mike Tomlin, Kenny Pickett, TJ Watt, those are the three real keys to success. And I think the only person that can slow them down is Matt Canada, because he's terrible.
God, why is he still the offensive
He's
coordinator?
terrible. But I think Kenny Pickett is good enough to counteract that. And George Pickens is also a man amongst boys. I think,
Matt Canada.
God, what was the stat I saw the other day? Contested catch rate success was like 60% for George Pickens last season. Just
Yeah.
like 30 points higher than the next closest guy, which is just absurd. So if we can see even just a fraction of that from George Pickens, it's going to give Kenny Pickett a comfortable go-to target, which is a necessity for any young quarterback. And with that combination and TJ Watt, I just think this team, I have them as a playoff team. And I think they should scare everyone in the NFL with that defense, and if the offense does what I think it can do.
Brad, you're with me on this. 8.5 under. Why?
I have them right at 8. And I think that they're a team that's 1 year away from being legit contenders. I think that they still have a lot of things they need to clean up a bit. I'm not a big fan of Najee Harris. I think that he could potentially lose his job, which I would not be shocked if that happens towards the end of the season. But I like the Steelers. I have them right at 8. I was contemplating on putting them into playoffs, but I just couldn't do it. Like I said, the North is very competitive, especially when he's going up against, when Kenny Pickett's going up against quarterbacks that have had, that experience. I think that, he is going to have to take one more year to really develop into the quarterback that I think he could be. I do like Pickens. I think he's going to be a dog. I think he's going to be one of the best receivers in the NFL. Once Kenny Pickett gets to the point where he can be that quarterback for Pickens. And the defense, like I said, TJ Watt, he's a stud. He's an absolute stud. But I think that it's going to take a little while for them to get where they need to be. But eventually, down the road, I do see them being like really big contenders going into the North for years ago.
I just don't like the roster on offense, particularly right now. Yeah, they got dudes at receiver, but I've never been a big Deontay Johnson guy. A lot of drops coming out of Deontay Johnson.
Bet he catches a touchdown this year.
Offensive line too. Like, no one talks about can you name, without looking it up, can you name one person on that offensive line? I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
no,
know if I
that's
can,
not good.
to be honest with you right now.
As big of nerds we are, that's not good.
Yeah, that's not good.
This next division we should be able to breeze through. We are in unison on all 4 teams. I think it's pretty simple. Jaguars good, rest of the division bad. Well, who else wants to take the floor and expand?
It's Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson against a really, really bad division.
Really
and I
bad
believe
division.
they play the NFC South, right? As their
Another really bad division.
Yeah. Not good.
It's
Really
it's
good
the
for
Jags
Jacksonville.
division to lose.
Yeah,
It's the Jags division to lose. I mean, if they
the
lose
Jags,
it, it's going to look very bad on them. But
if they can't hit this win total, then we've got a problem. This should be the most slam dunk hammer over there's ever been.
100,000%.
The fact that it's not at 10.5 almost concerns me a little bit.
Blows my mind.
I have that. Yeah, I have them 11 wins. So
I think I've got them at 13 wins.
I too have them at 13 wins.
I
have them winning 13 games.
I think, to quote Nick Wright, the Prince is going to cook this year.
Prince.
I
No
mean,
doubt.
I think giving him Calvin Ridley to go with what Christian Kirk did last year.
Woo!
He's all of our favorites. Degenerate gambler himself, Calvin Ridley.
We love that. That gets points.
Love that. Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, underrated pickup. I think he's going to vulture a lot of touches and calls fantasy managers a living hell each week. But yeah, Trevor Lawrence surrounded with those weapons. The only concern for me, the offensive line, not good with Cam Robinson missing the first month of the season due to PED suspension.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you could see them drop some games early. Even if they drop some games early, I still think they can hit this win total because, quite frankly, they should win 4, probably 5 division games, and then they play the NFC South. So, even they've got a lot of room for leniency, I think.
Their first 6 games, in no order because one of them is twice. Indianapolis twice. The Chiefs, the Texans, the Falcons, the Bills. And
I've got them 4-2 through that stretch.
The only tough game that's on the road there would be the Bills.
Yeah,
I think 4-2. I think 4-2, 5-1 feels very apropos.
Yeah, after watching last night's game,
they're gonna have
should
Kansas
have
City
a
at
good
home.
chance with Kansas City early in the season.
They're gonna have
They
Kansas
play
City at home.
They play KC week 2.
Yeah, next week in Jacksonville.
It's the best time they could ask to get Kansas City.
Yeah,
100%.
Because I mean, Kelsey probably plays. I would say.
Oh, he's playing.
He's not
has
gonna be 100%,
right? Even
he's playing.
Even 75% Travis Kelsey is better than anything they had by a long shot. I mean, dude, we're throwing touchdowns to Blake Bell.
Yeah.
we were joking.
Big OU Sooner QB Blake Bell.
Titans 7.5. I think. Do all of us have them at 7 wins?
Yeah.
I think we all have them at
5
7 wins.
5 wins.
Yeah,
So I initially
under.
I initially was at 5, and then I flipped a couple games because I didn't love it.
What happens to this team that causes you to go to 5 wins, Brad?
I think it's the defense. The defense was pretty bad last year, and they didn't really make that many, additions in the offseason to really booster up that defense. I know they brought in Hopkins as their receiver, but how is he going to be? I'm not too sure, especially with Tannehill quarterback. I'm not the biggest Tannehill fan. I think he's average at best, but he's definitely on the wrong side of his career, and that's why they drafted Will Levis. But I don't know. I think it's going to get to the point where towards that, the half of the year, they're going to start seeing what they want to do with future at the quarterback position, and they're just going to start tanking down so they can get a good draft pick. I don't have a lot of faith. I think Derrick Henry is going to be, just as good as always, but I don't think he's going to have the type of season that he's always had because he's 31 now, and that's when you usually start to see the running backs decline once they hit that
injury as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't have a lot of faith in him. I like Vrabel. No.
Yeah, Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
Mike Vrabel. Yep.
Yeah,
one of my favorites.
Phenomenal
I like
coach.
Vrabel, but I think this year is going to be pretty tough for him. So yeah, I'm just not a big fan of the Titans this year.
It's amazing that this division is as bad as we lead it on to be, and that none of us think they can win 8 games. Harold Landry is another thing too. Like, he's going to come back from injury. Had 12.5 sacks 2 years ago. Gets hurt. Misses all of last year. We don't know what he's going to look like, and that's a big factor, Josh.
There's going to be some rust to knock off there. My biggest reasoning for going under, like I said, I initially had them at 5 wins. Ended up bumping a couple wins on early in the season because Mike Vrabel's just that good of a coach, and I think he accounts for an extra win, maybe even 2 per season. He's one of those guys you don't want to bet against him early on in the season, especially. He game plans so well, Belichick guy. But I think the downfall starts to come, like Brad said, with the quarterback position. Like, you get to the bye week, week 6, I want to say the bye week is for them?
Their bye week is week 7.
Week 7, okay. So 6 games in. I think I have them at, I believe, 3-3 at that point, maybe. And if you're there, I think you don't feel like you have a chance to win the division, obviously, because I have Jacksonville being really good. You're in the AFC. I don't think you feel like you're a wild card team at that point either. I think you start to lean towards playing your rookie quarterback or your second year quarterback in Malik Willis. And I also think you start fielding trade offers for Derrick Henry. Like, I don't be
Yes,
surprised
they
if you
I
got
don't
see
hate
Spears.
Derrick
that.
Henry moved.
Yeah.
I don't hate
Like,
that.
what if, I don't know, what if the Eagles call you up and say, yeah, we want Derrick Henry?
Don't
Like,
put that bad mojo on us. we don't.
we'll
We
get to
don't
the
want.
Eagles later. I don't love them, but again, why I think
I can
they could make
imagine
that
that.
trade call. But yeah, they don't give me a lot of hope. I think they're a team that's going to pack it in early and start looking to the offseason because they've got two young quarterbacks that they're ready to play.
Agreed. The Indianapolis Colts, 6.5. I have them winning 6 games. Interestingly enough, I have them losing their first 7 in a row.
Oh my!
I have them going
Jesus.
0 and
How do you
7
have them at 6 wins?
by going 6 and 4 in their last 10 games.
Oh my god!
I think this is going to be a process. I think this is going to take some
Roller
time.
coaster.
But one of the things Brad and I have vocally been as far apart of anything on this entire offseason is the prospects of not only Anthony Richardson, but the fit in Indianapolis. I could not love the fit more. I think Shane Steichen is the guy that had a whole lot to do with Jalen Hurts being who he is right now. I think, while obviously these are two different people and two different players, you got a guy that's bigger, stronger, faster, that might make a little bit more errant decisions, but that's going to come in time when you take your lumps. And when I look at how I have the Colts starting out, Jacksonville week 1, Houston week 2, Baltimore week 3, the Rams week 4, Tennessee week 5. I mean, they're going to play 4 divisional opponents in their first 6 games. I had to give the Rams a win somewhere. So, that being said, I believe a lot in Anthony Richardson. It's going to take time. It's going to absolutely take some time. I have them eclipsing their win total in the very last week of the season in week 17 against the Texans to finish the year 6-11. Brad, go ahead and undo everything I just said.
Hate Richardson. I think that's the biggest thing that I've been very vocal. I don't hate Richardson. It was just going into the draft. I wanted him to fall to a team where he would actually have time to develop. I didn't want him thrust into a situation where he had to be the guy. He had to be out
Week
there
1.
making week one. Like I did not want that, and he fell to the Colts, and I was like, well, that's happening. I think we're going to start Minshew just to give Richardson that time to really develop, but no, they're going to throw him in the fire week 1 against the Jags. That's going to be a tough game for him. But overall, I look at the Colts. Their offensive line is starting to get very old. You don't know what's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor. You have Pittman as your wide receiver 1, which I don't mind Pittman, but I don't think he's a game changer the way that you would need that receiver for Richardson to feel more comfortable and for his game to progress faster than what you would want it to. The defense is pretty nice, but they are getting older. They had a lot of injuries last year on the defensive side that really held them back. I have them at 4-13. I think that they're going to really struggle this year. I think they're going to be competing for the number 1 pick in the draft. Like I said, I don't hate Richardson. I just hate where he landed. And I don't hate the coaching staff either. I think the coaching's fine. I think the ownership's pretty bad. And
Yeah.
just it really is. It's really bad.
But yeah, to
Hey,
pick back up there, I agree with you. Poor run organization, ownership is obviously not good when you're choosing to alienate your best player on your team and basically tell him he doesn't matter. Not good. But for some reason, light always seems to shine on the Colts. I mean, they lucked into Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck when they've been historically a franchise that doesn't do anything right. And I think they've lucked into another superstar quarterback. I think Anthony Richardson is as talented as it gets. He is not from the same planet as us. Like, you look at that guy and you look at every other normal human being on the planet, we're not the same. We're not made the same. That guy can do things that are not fathomable. So,
Song,
with Shane Steichen,
Morrison.
with Shane Steichen coaching him and what he did with Jalen Hurts, who, yes, Jalen Hurts is a good athlete. He's an exceptional athlete. But he's not Anthony Richardson as an athlete, in my opinion. Like, and I think Richardson is arguably a more polished passer when it comes to reading defenses and things of that nature than Hurts was when he came in. He's not as accurate and precise as with the football. I think some of that is also due to what he had to work with at Florida last year and people looking at completion percentages and things like that. I think it's a little blown out of proportion. His accuracy issues, air quotes for people not watching on YouTube. Um, but yeah, I look for him to be a superstar. I wanted him at 1 in Carolina. I'm a Carolina fan. Love Bryce Young, don't get me wrong, but Anthony Richardson's a different guy. But yeah, they're still going to go under. Not a good football team. Defense sucks. They're going to give up a lot of points.
The Houston Texans. As the recurring theme on this pod, we are all in unison with every single team in this division. Loved what they did in the draft. They took a big swing, and they needed to do something because I don't know if your time as a general manager could have gotten off to a rockier start for a longer period of time. Maybe Joe Douglas has an argument with the Jets, but Nick Casario's start to his tenure as GM of the Texans, you come in and you have a great quarterback, but you still go 4-13. Then the quarterback wants out. Then the quarterback's really horny. And now on top of
Loves
that,
massages.
loves being horny. Then on top of that, you've got to build it all down from the ground back up.
Yep.
So that being said, I'm not going to say this is a big year. I will say next year, year after, this
Huge year.
how this team progresses in the next 3 years will decide whether or not he sits in that chair going forward. But I think we all agree it's just not going to be this year. I have them at 5-12. Brad, what about you?
I have them at 6-11. I think they're going to have a rocky start. I think with C.J. Stroud as your quarterback, you're not going to be expecting a whole lot from him. I do think that he's going to show a lot of upside this season. I like their receiving core. I like Nico Collins. I like John Mechie didn't get to play last year, so they'll have him this year.
Yep.
They also have Damian Pierce. I think it's going to be really nice. Their defense did add a lot of talent as well. They got Will Anderson, with the second pick, which was the craziest thing I've ever seen in the draft in a good bit when they traded up to the number 2 spot.
Trade up to 3.
Trade up to 3, that's what it was. Yeah. So, I don't they're not going to be anything special, but I do think they're going to improve from last year. I think they made a lot of offseason additions to the team that's going to get them above what they were last year.
Sure. Josh?
Yeah, I think this team's terrible. I don't think they're good. The only reason I have them at 5 wins is because of the schedule. Like, I think CJ Stroud is going to struggle tremendously.
Me too.
And not because I think he's bad per se. I just think, and not to lean into the Ohio State quarterback bit, but also Ohio State quarterbacks do tend to struggle coming off their first read. And you're going to have to do that. And who's going to separate? I mean, yes, I like John Mechie too. I think he's going to be a pretty good receiver. But I don't think Nico Collins is going to be able to create any separation, and Stroud's not going to trust him with jump balls. And I think Nico Collins is a jump ball specialist. That's kind of what his mantra is. There's not a lot of weapons. Damian Pierce is a stud. Love that guy. But the defense doesn't do a whole lot for me. I love Will Anderson. I think that was a great move in the draft to go get Will Anderson.
Could end up costing them.
It's definitely going to end up costing them. So I personally wouldn't have made that trade up. I wouldn't have drafted C.J. Stroud at 2. I would have taken Will Anderson at 2.
Yeah,
Just
they
for
still
the
do
record.
have the Browns' first pick next year, so they still do have a first rounder.
Yeah. I think I remember talking with you, Davidson, during that draft cycle. I would have taken Will Anderson at 2.
Me
and
too.
probably gone best player available at the second pick in the first round.
Yeah, what
and
was
kick
that, like 10
quarterback
or
down the
11?
road? Yeah, 10 or 11, somewhere in there, and just go best player available and kind of build it up the way Cleveland did before they got Baker. Obviously, that didn't work out. They had to go get Deshaun, but they look with the team they have now. They built everything up the way you're supposed to around the quarterback, and then you go get the guy. You don't go get the guy and let him die. They've done that before, a la David Carr. So
And Davis
I think,
Mills.
yeah, to a different extent, but yeah,
Of
to a
course,
different
I'm just
extent.
throwing a jab.
I love Davis Mills. Love that guy. I would have let him play another year, but that's just me.
Pretty straightforward division. Everybody in sync.
Terrible.
We are all in sync on this division as well, except for one team. But it is not this team. The AFC West begins with the Kansas City Chiefs. I had them at 13 wins anyway.
Here?
No, I don't. I don't.
Okay.
I'm not
just
flipping.
checking before, since we've already seen a game.
I'm not fading Mahomes. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
no, me
not.
neither. I just wanted to throw that option out there in case anybody wanted to.
I mean, even 11-6 doesn't cash this over. So it's one of those things like Kelsey will be back. Kelsey will be fine. The offense. You can't tell me that Brett Veach doesn't go get a receiver before the deadline. I think it should be Mike Evans, but
we'll see.
Neither here nor there. Even if it's a rental,
yeah,
he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year.
Room, and they still got a guy they need to pay now, and Chris Jones.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're going to do that.
Yeah,
they would have done it already if they were going to do that.
I think it's a big mistake. I know that defense looked good last night, but pay the man. Just pay him.
Agreed.
He's the best defensive tackle in the game.
On what terms, Brad, do they go 10-7 or worse?
No, I have them at 12 wins. The worst I see them going is 11, which would hit the under on this one, but I think they hit 12 wins. It's the Chiefs. You got Mahomes. I feel like any game you go into, even last night without Kelsey, I still feel comfortable with Mahomes going against anybody. And once Kelsey gets back, they'll be all right. I think they'll be just as good as last year. I think the receiver room could become an issue if someone on that receiving side of the offense cannot step up. Then it could become a big issue. But for right now, it's week 1. I'm not stressing too much about the receiving court until it becomes a big, big issue. But yeah, I don't see them going under 11 wins at all, unless, barring injury, Mahomes breaks both his legs. But I still feel like he'd play either way. So, yeah, I don't see them going under.
Yeah, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because we've already talked a lot about the Chiefs. But basically everything I said earlier about Lamar Jackson being like the second best player in the league, and yeah, that's Mahomes ahead of him, and he's as good as it gets. He's the best on the planet, the best player in the world. As long as he is healthy and playing, even if he's not 100% healthy, they're going to be damn good. They're going to probably win 11, 12, maybe even 13 games. So Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, I feel like that's enough said right there. That's all you pencil them in every year.
I think, man, there were so many things that made me cringe watching that game last night. And we touched on it at the beginning. You've got to go get a wide receiver. Wouldn't Brett Veach love DeAndre Hopkins right about now?
Oh, he would.
I mean, come on, dude.
But I don't think if he wasn't ready to go sign DeAndre Hopkins, I don't know if he's ready to go trade for Mike Evans.
14 targets.
I have a different suitor for Mike Evans, and we'll get to that later.
Only team that we're not in unison on in this division are the Los Angeles Chargers. I could see this team not eclipsing 9. I could. But again, it's another quarterback thing. I have a lot of belief in Justin Herbert. I have a lot of belief in this offensive line. I don't think Rashawn Slater gets enough credit for how good he is. I do think that while I did not like the fit of Quentin Johnston as a first-round pick, you already have a big, bulky, go up and get it type guy in Mike Williams. It's just one of those things, though, where I would take quarterback upside over a lot of other things. And I kind of like Kellen Moore in this offense. I don't think they miss a beat. Josh, why are you bullish, or why are you not so bullish on them?
So, when it comes to the Chargers, they seem to disappoint every year. Kind of how Brad talked about Cleveland earlier. They don't get the job done. You always have high expectations of them. They always have all this talent, and they never seem to get there. And not only that, the receiving room, yeah, it's got all these big flashy names. You got Keenan Allen, you got Mike Williams, you got Quentin Johnston. Even Josh Palmer is starting to become a little more of a household name to people that are more like us that follow the game heavily. But guess what none of those guys do? They don't create a lot of separation. Keenan Allen did when he was younger, but he's not that guy anymore. I don't think not a lot of big open windows. It's a lot of Justin Herbert having to win and throw guys open and be all world. And I know again we're gonna say Patrick Mahomes would love to have any of those guys I just named. And he would. He would. I agree. But again, eventually it gets old. Throwing to the same old guys, you know how to game plan against them. Nothing's really changed with this team from last year, in my opinion, other than bringing in Kellen Moore, which I agree, I think is pretty good. But I don't know if it's going to be the big change everybody thinks. I don't know. I don't buy into this team until they prove otherwise to me and show me a reason to buy in.
This is one of my teams that I have at 10-7 in that 10-7 logjam, and via tiebreak, I do have them sneaking into the playoffs. Brad, your take on the Chargers?
I also have them at 10-7. I think Kellen Moore is actually going to be a really nice addition to their offense. I mean, we saw what he did with Dak Prescott, in the years in Dallas. He elevated his game. He elevated the offense around, Dak Prescott. So I think, if Keenan Allen can stay healthy, I think that's going to be really big for Herbert. He has Eckler, so Eckler's going to be nice. And I like the defense too. They have Derwin James, they have Joey Bosa, they have some studs on and Khalil Mack as well. So I think that they have a lot of studs on the defensive side that's going to be able to keep them in games. But overall, I think it's going to be a recurring theme for me. Quarterback play is essential in the NFL, and when you have a guy like Justin Herbert, I have full belief that your team can go a little bit further than what some people might project your team. So the over for the Chargers feels pretty comfortable.
God, that team is old.
Yeah.
Old and injury prone.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah.
And very high ceiling, very low floor type of thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super against them. I think I've got them at 7-10 in a pretty tough division. So they're still going to be a decent team and in the mix.
Here's a team I have been very excited to talk about. Broncos country. Let's fade. Let's fade.
They ain't rotted.
Let's fade. We are all on the under. We have a Sean Payton lover here underneath me, and we have a Sean Payton hater here to the right of me.
Fuck that guy.
I'm fine with Sean Payton. I think, I had a lot of opportunities to win a ton of Super Bowls. The Roby Coleman play, the non-call in the Vikings game, a lot of things could have bounced the Saints' way that would put them in the Super Bowl those 2 separate years. But, we're talking about the here and now. And the here and now, my hearing now about this team is I can't unsee what I saw last year. I can't unsee the stagnant, slow, and what looked like regression right in front of our very eyes of Russell Wilson. It's so mind-numbing to think about it, though. What worked so well in Seattle when there were so many people, I mean, national pundits and keyboard warriors alike, saying that this team last year going into the season was going to be so much different. Brad, I mean, I'll start off with you. Why did we think the team was going to be so much different last year as opposed to all the issues that we thought he had in Seattle? Let me simplify that. What was so much worse in Denver last year that we didn't see in Seattle?
Also, thank you for the Vietnam flashbacks and the safe playoff history.
Yeah.
That was nice little trip
Had to do
down
it.
memory lane. I don't know. Last year was very very weird for the Broncos. You had Russell Wilson coming in, which everyone was just like, yeah, they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be contention to get the top seed. They have a top 10 defense. They have Williams as the running back. They have Jared Judy, Sutton. What could go wrong? And everything went wrong. Literally everything went wrong. I mean, it wasn't like the defense was like super bad last year. I mean, they still finished top 15, so it wasn't like they were atrocious. It was just the offense. I mean, the offensive playing calling, all the way down to how Russell Wilson was playing, injuries to the receiving corps. It fell completely apart. I think that they do go the under. I don't think they're going to be as bad as last year. I have them at 8-9. I think they barely missed the playoffs. But I think this year is really going to come down to Russell Wilson. It really comes down to if he can, produce the way that he did in Seattle, with a top 15 to top 10 defense behind him. But if he doesn't work out, we could be seeing, Peyton take Sean Payton is not like drafting quarterback, so I don't know if he would draft a quarterback or go, the offseason and try to get one out of free agency to compete with Wilson. But there definitely could be a little bit of a QB controversy going into 2024. But for right now, I think that they're going to show. I mean, Judy's out right now too, so he has Sutton as his wide receiver one, and the running back room is a little bit iffy because Williams, he keeps on getting hurt. Every
Tim
year that he's
Patrick
played,
already out for the season too.
Exactly. So it's like it's already downhill again. So I don't think they're going to. I do not think they're going to be as bad as they were last year, but they're definitely going to struggle, especially in the AFC. It's stars. I mean, I don't know about the West. The West really isn't that competitive, but the conference as a whole, I think that they're going to struggle quite a bit against teams in the conference.
Quarterback controversy could be sooner than you think. Reports are that Sean Payton loves some Jarrett Stidham. I love that.
God.
If we get to watch Jarrett Stidham start at quarterback for the Denver Broncos, I'm gonna love it.
He might make a call for Taysom Hill too.
Oh Lord. What?
He called Taysom Hill the next
Steve Young. Steve Young.
The next Steve Young.
It's okay. Hey, it's not worse
he's
than Kyle
making
Shanahan
a ton of
calling
money.
Sam Darnold Steve Young.
He's making a ton of money. I mean, I don't know how anyone would trade for that contract.
I envy that guy, man.
Josh, this team so polarizing a season ago for the failures of Nathaniel Hackett. He is out. The coaching situation, I mean, seems to have been rectified. You go from
the guy that loves Austin Powers.
You go from Hackett to Sean Payton, and clearly that's an upgrade. But I don't know where the other upgrades are coming from here. I have major issues with, like I said, I can't unsee what I saw last year, and I don't think that Sean Payton's going to fix it. They have an out with Russell Wilson in 2024, and I think that they will be heading in that direction, don't you?
So I don't think he's going to fix it. I don't think you can fix it, but you can disguise it, per se. And not
Fair.
saying Russ was never great, because he was great. But early on in his career, the Seahawks did a great job of disguising it. He's never been a physical specimen. He's never been the guy who's the greatest athlete on the field or the most precise quarterback on the field. And I think that was the biggest problem last year. Nathaniel Hackett tried to use him as a drop back passer, and that's never been Russ's game. Like, as great as he's been at the peak of his powers, he's never been a drop back passer. He's never going to be a drop back passer. The guy's deep into his career now. You're not going to change that about him. So you kind of have to lean on your run game, which is why I think they brought in Samaje Perine, who I love. I think he's bound to have a really big year. And then you've got Javonte Williams as your change of pace back. You lean on the running game. You get into third and manageable situations. You let Russ make decisions from there because you know he can make good decisions. He's not going to put the ball in harm's way a lot when he doesn't have to force it. And I think that the biggest asset of Sean Payton, as much as I freaking hate that guy, he's not going to put your quarterback in harm's way. He was able to win with some bad Saints rosters for a while. I mean, you're playing with the combination of Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill as your quarterback, and you're still competing for playoff spots. You're doing something right. So Russell Wilson is an upgrade over that, and even in the current state he's in, I think they're going to be average. I could see them sneaking in and getting over this win total and getting into the playoffs. And if the Chiefs are, I hate even saying this, if the Chiefs regress and can't figure out a wide receiver option, there's a alternate reality where the Broncos could win this division. But
Ew.
I hate it. I hated saying that.
Ew. Yeah, not a buyer. Don't think we're buyers in the next team either. Josh, you and I both said leading into this pod that we might sneakily believe in the Raiders. Looking at the schedule, nah. I have them under 6.5 wins. I have them tied for the worst record in the AFC. Jimmy G, without the whole juxtaposition of being in the San Francisco offense, is that's a very scary thing to me. Or even being under the cloak of Bill Belichick, to even put it lightly. Just not enough guys. There's the Chandler Jones thing. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Like, what even is happening there? Like, it's something else, honestly. And I just don't think this team has enough bodies to be able to compete. And I have them under the win total.
Yeah, I also have them under the win total. The only way I see they eclipse this win total, which is a low win total in a 17-game season, is if Devontae Adams just puts this team on his back and Max Crosby puts the defense on his back. Those guys are two studs, and they are perfectly capable of doing that. And we've seen that Garoppolo can be competent enough to hit a number one guy and funnel an offense to one guy. And Josh Jacobs, too. I mean, he's back in, I guess you would say, good graces with the team. I mean, he got a 1-year deal done. Not what he's looking for, obviously, but he's under contract and going to play. But, yeah, this team doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in me. Josh McDaniels is the biggest reason. The guy, he's had, at this point, you can pretty much pencil him in for 2 failed head coaching positions. I mean, he was terrible in Denver, and he hasn't been very good in Las Vegas. So
The players don't like him, it feels like.
Yeah, exactly. Like, players have never liked him. Clearly, Chandler Jones doesn't like him.
Yeah, does not like him.
Almost feels like an Antonio Brown situation all over again.
Does not like him.
But not the player's not in the wrong. Just the same type of craziness. Like, this team has got more questions than answers, and that's why their win total's so low.
Bradley, your take.
Yeah, I think that they're not that great, especially from last year. I think that, they had Josh Jacobs, be the leading running back in the league. They had Devontae Adams being a stud, and they just still couldn't get over the hump. And I'm not really a big believer in Garoppolo. I don't think he gets you over the hump. I think, he's just about as, productive as Derek Carr. There's not like crazy upgrade at that position. They didn't really do too much on the defensive side to make me go like, oh yeah, they're going to, really up their defense, because they were like in the mid-20s last year in defense. They've never had a top 15 defense since I think we've been alive. So I'm not like too high on them. I have them at like 6-11, I think. It could be lower than that if Garoppolo does not show out. But yeah, I don't know. I think Devontae might potentially be up on the trade block. I don't want to like say that's a guarantee, but if the Raiders are bad, I could see him wanting to get the fuck out. Like
Kansas City
fucking hell.
Chief.
I think
Yeah.
this team is about to reap the demons of the Gruden and Mike Mayock era, where you cannot in the NFL, and yes, they hit on some late round picks, Max Crosby being the highlight of it.
Like 4 firsts.
And Josh Jacobs being the only one that they hit on. But guess what? They had 3 1s that year. They had 3 1s in 2019.
And you hit on a running back.
And you hit on the last one. You hit on the last one.
Back of all things, too.
You whiffed on Cleveland Farrell, and you whiffed on Jonathan Abram. You whiffed on both of those guys.
So bad.
I think, you can't. The one thing you cannot, you could get away with it in the NBA a little bit because you have a little bit more flexibility with a lot less roster spots and superstar signings and blah, 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 blah. You cannot whiff on your number one or on your first round picks in the NFL and live to tell the tale. You just can't. Guys, that'll do it for the AFC. We're going to take a quick break here, but then we're going to get ready to head back in to do the NFC win totals. We'll separate the episodes here. Successful so far, though, being on this airwaves with you guys. I'm excited to see what this brings us. Any last remarks from you guys?
Brad?
I'm just excited for the season to, officially kick off Sunday. I mean, it kicked off Thursday, but Sunday we're locked in, man. We got a pretty good slate coming up Sunday, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into the NFC. AFC feels pretty straightforward from year to year. You have your cream of the crop at the top and your bad teams at the bottom. I think a lot of you guys are going to enjoy the NFC side of things. I think we're going to have some variance there where we were a lot of in lockstep here.
Yep, we will. And we will be back with the NFC win totals. You'll catch both of these episodes everywhere you can get your podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, and maybe even more places. Somewhere we will figure that out along the line. For me, for Mr. Josh Sears, for Mr. Brad Davis, we will see you in the next episode.